I guess the whole point, I'll just maybe introduce the session and then, ask a few questions and try and, share your personal views, and I'll share a few of mine that I recall, with the idea to just, explain how we have progressed in our careers and gotten to where we are currently, and maybe, give an advice to other folks who might be interested in, pursuing a career in finance. Also share challenges that we must have faced, how we overcome those, and key learning points and tips that you use in your field. So maybe I'll start off with you. I'll just ask you to, maybe if you can give us like a chronological order of your career so far. What did you do? What did you study? How did you, it's stuff they can look up on your LinkedIn, but I guess maybe it's something you can just run us through.
Okay, I think I'll start maybe just before university, because there was a big decision I made then. So after secondary school in Nigeria, done my WAEC, then I had got admission to Covenant, and my dad had actually paid the security deposit, right? Mm-hmm. But then I guess I felt like I wasn't ready for university, right? So I then decided to go and do my international baccalaureate diploma in Ghana, Tema International School. Post that, then I went to the States for university, DePaul University. I majored in economics and minored in mathematics. So then how does that bring me here? After I graduated from school, I got a job with New York Life. It's a Fortune 500 insurance company. Now, at that time, I knew they didn't sponsor international students, H1B, but I was like, you know what? Let me just try. Maybe if I get the job, they might change their mind.
Nice. I like that mindset.
I got the offer. Then I told them, I will need sponsorship. Then the offer got rescinded, right? Because, they just did it.
We don't offer sponsorship,
Exactly. So the offer got rescinded. Then it was basically, do I wait in America to look for a job, or do I just come back home and, be productive? So I decided that I'll just come back and do my NYC. Luckily for me, every summer I was, apart from after my first year, I was in Nigeria doing an internship. After my second year at university, I worked with Don Laura Merrifield. It's like a boutique investment bank in Lagos. And then after my third year in university, I did an internship with Standard Chartered Bank. So so when I came back, I think the weekend after, I started CFA lectures, because I said, you know what, I want to be in finance, but I figured, CFA would help me get there. Went to do my NYC, and during that, I did my PPA with the National Insurance Commission. Post NYC, joined the Standard Chartered Bank's International Graduate Program, which is a one-year program, do rotations across a few business teams. And then after that, I got transferred to the Dubai office here, with a decent role. So originally when I moved, I was working with the commercial real estate team, focused on covering Africa and Middle East.
Okay.
Mainly debt financing, effectively, both development loans and, investment loans. For those who don't know what the commercial real estate financing is, it's basically effectively your mortgage, but for bigger corporates, right? You want to build a hotel, you want to build an office building. Then subsequently, I moved into, just last November, I joined the financing solutions team, mainly focusing on Africa, although the team is an Africa and Middle East team. Yes, still at Standard Chartered Bank. The way to describe what I do now is it's easier for me to, it's still debt financing, but it's probably easier for me to describe the kind of financing I don't do versus what I do. So effectively, now we work on any kind of financing, debt financing, except ECA-backed deals, which are export credit agencies, and sponsor-led deals. So your sovereign wealth funds or your private equity firms. But every other kind of financing, whether it's acquisition, corporate-led acquisition, we work on that. Yes, just broad range and industry agnostic compared to my former team where I was focused on just commercial real estate. Yeah,
Okay.
so I guess that's been a, brief synopsis.
That's a very interesting one. It seems like you've really, gone deep into the heart of finance, and this is something that seems like this is what you really love doing, and it's something I'm going to do for the foreseeable future. Just checking on that, right?
No, definitely. For now, I don't see me moving anywhere in terms of, the field. So yeah, it's been good.
Cool. So what do you think are maybe like the critical success factors, that have led you down your path? It seems like, I know one key thing that leads you to success is, that ability to not take no for an answer, or, if something doesn't go your way, we strategize around it. So just looking at your career, I think I see just a few of those examples. Your dad already paid for school at Covenant, but you just felt it wasn't the right thing, and you went another route. Even when you got the job in the US, and maybe that didn't fall through as you expected. We strategized. So do you want to? I'll let you, just explain what you think are maybe critical success factors that you've noticed from your life, or maybe even from somebody's life. Just let us know what those key points are.
I think it's broken into two things. The first section is, I think, pre-getting the job and then post-getting the job. So pre-getting the job, I think it's nice to know what you want to do, right? So for me, I knew I wanted to be in finance. Broad stroke, because finance is very broad. And so when I was applying for jobs then, it wasn't just spraying anywhere, right? It was, the Big Four, Stanbic, Standard Chartered, I knew I wanted finance roles. And I think that focus really helps because, everybody can see it, especially if you started doing internships before you start applying for your first job and you've been doing things related to what you want to do. People can see the story, right? Now, what's getting on the job linked is that it's nice to know what the job entails, right? Because a lot of times, for example, in banking, right, you have people complaining about, the work hours and all that. You know the culture, right? Yeah. Especially when you first join as an analyst, right? You have the 2 a.m. nights, the 4 a.m. nights. Well, it's just part of what you signed up for. Now, some people don't know what they are signing up for and what the life is, right? And that's why it's important to know what you want to do. And some people just, I guess, don't want to accept the reality of of the life they've chosen. Yeah. So I think it's important to, quickly come to terms with the industry you're in, that, okay, if you're in finance in general, it is not a 9-to-5 job. If you're looking for a 9-to-5 job,
you have to go somewhere else.
Go somewhere else, right? And so a lot of things that cause the disappointment, not just in work, family, is, that expectation mismatch. So I think that, being aligned to what your industry and what your firm wants, and also just have to put in the work, especially in the earlier stages of your career, right? You have to put in the reps, and then it probably gets slightly easier. Maybe not because the work gets easier, but because you've put in the reps, you've seen a lot of things, and you just become more efficient.
Yeah, makes sense. I think that resonates with me a lot. I think key points that you mentioned that I just want to, stay on. Understanding the field that you're getting into, understanding what is required to be successful in that space, doing the research, and then, if you look down your path, you can see all the steps that you took that led you to where you are today. And it was, very, very intentional from the start. You knew you always wanted to be in finance. That's what led you to do the CFA exam and keep pushing towards that part. You already knew the kind of companies that you wanted to work with. You knew, if you put in the hours at the early stage, payoff for that down the line. So that also just, sort of like takes me to my next question, which is an important one for folks to learn about, especially folks that want to come into finance. It's this work-life balance issue, right? I think you mentioned it. I believe, I'm not sure if you didn't mention, but I know you and I know you're married. I think you have a kid or your kid is coming. So I'm trying to understand, how do you manage this, work-life balance, being in finance, especially since you've risen up the ladder, you're closer to the top. So how do you manage that time? How are you having complaints? Are you having complaints from the missus concerning how much time you're spending at the office, or how much time are you going everywhere with your laptop?
Oh, she complains about that. Don't worry, my wife. You go on holiday and I'm carrying my work laptop. My wife, I think now she has accepted her fate.
She has accepted, yeah. I think there was this. I just want to quickly mention there was this meme that was trending. I think it was on Reddit, of how guys in finance are always carrying their laptops everywhere, and then the caption was, "Whose analyst is this?" Tons of funny pictures. You see guys at the airports with their laptops open, guys at the filling station with their laptops open. It's just hilarious. So let me let you respond to that. Yeah.
So I think I would connect with what I said last in the previous question about expectation mismatch, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So luckily for me, I was in this field when I met, my wife, and so she saw the late nights before we got married. Mm-hmm. So it's not a situation of, now we're getting married and then you're saying you're working late, you're working weekends, right? Yeah. It's not that she's happy with it, but it's not like, you changed up on me after we got married, right?
You were pretending and now you're a different person.
Right. Exactly, right? But still, sometimes when there's work to be done, you can't help it. But I guess as you move along, sometimes you get to know the difference between what is actually urgent and what someone is saying is urgent for the sake of saying it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that way it helps your life, because then if someone is telling me something is urgent but I know it's not really urgent, I would prioritize something else, right? Whether it's family, come back home early that day, so but sometimes, no matter how high you rise, you would have those late nights, those long weekends or late nights. There was a few years back, then Dubai was still working Sunday to Thursday. So Thursday was effectively our Friday, right? And then I closed early Thursday. I was already home. My boss calls me and says, "Wale, hope you don't have any plans on the weekend. For the weekend, cancel it. We have a credit paper to turn around over the weekend." And what are you going to do? That's what pays your salary and pays your bills, right? You cancel your plans if you ever had any, and you it just comes in bursts.
Definitely. Yeah, I think the key thing I can take away from what you just said is that ability to manage time, and it's a skill that you build over time in the industry. The ability to read people, because I know in finance you meet all sorts of people that just like to do things, people that are just on a high. They always want things to be done, even if it's a priority or not. But just trying to get it out of the door. So you learn and understand those people. I mean, being successful in finance is like, there's just multiple skills that you have to learn: time management, people management, and also being able to do the analysis and core job. So it's a mix of the soft skills and even the hard technical skills as well. Interesting. Cool. Let me move on.
Just following up on what you said, right? Managing people also, like at the when you just start, you're really just managing your boss, right? But as you move up, you need to learn how to manage up and down, right? Yeah. Or because that's what will help you, not just try to manage your boss.
Yeah. You also have to bring up the next crop. As you brought up. Cool. So let me ask, what advice would you give your younger self, starting out in your career? Actually, before I go to that, let me ask about the industry trends and how to take advantage of the opportunity. So the question I have for you now is, what do you see are maybe like the biggest trends and opportunities in your industry I mean, your industry seems like it's more institutionalized, so I don't think it's something where, I mean, it's harder for a lone player to start up something in that space. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, I just want you to share what you see are the key trends and opportunities in that space, and how someone, I mean, maybe an individual or institution, can take advantage of these opportunities.
So yes, like you said, it's more difficult for a single person to just start something here. But as a debt person, that's all I've done since I've post my time in Nigeria. There are certain things you see. Two things is the ESG, and then the fusion of tech and finance. So with the ESG, I think now you're seeing, now people might debate whether ESG is a fad or not, right? But the reality is that global institutions and a lot of global capital is coming to support ESG. And it gets to the point now that even banks are getting what I'll say credit relief or capital relief for ESG projects. So if you're doing something that has an ESG link, you realize that you can get cheaper debt funding than you would otherwise be able to get on your standalone credit basis.
Okay.
Right. Especially when you're looking at foreign currency loans, right? Because the banks are getting capital relief for ESG related products. Loans. The other opportunities you're seeing now is with the fusion of tech and finance. I know a lot of people, and maybe in other sessions they'll be talking about fintechs and all that, but I want to focus on hard assets. So with the move to the cloud and the ever growing data that needs to be captured, you are seeing a big need to upgrade digital infrastructure. In particular in Africa, we're talking like data centers, right? It's leading to a lot of debt going into the space, and it's also leading to a lot of FDI coming into the space. So you saw the recent acquisition of Rack Center by Actis, and then also the main one acquisition by Equinix, right? And you've seen larger entities on the continent, whether it's Africa data centers, right, expanding presence out of their home base and coming, spreading it. And what you'll probably end up seeing is the same way people start specializing in these assets. The same way you saw people start specializing in towers, right? A lot of the telecom players, MTN, they ended up selling their tower assets, and people, before now, you had banks owning their own data centers, different people owning their own data centers to store. Now you're going to see that place become more institutionalized and specialized, and people will focus on their core business as opposed to, doing this on the side. And it brings up so many opportunities, right? Both for PE funds that want to fund green data centers, not just on the ESG space, but in terms of greenfield, and also opportunities to diversify your REIT selection in the country. Because typically you're only looking at hospitality assets, commercial office buildings, and maybe some resi. Now, this is that's a good chance to get effectively industrial assets with long-term leases, because a lot of the guys are doing, hyperscalers, and you have, 15, 20-year leases from Amazon, the likes of Amazon, Microsoft, and all that. So there's, so those are the two big trends I'm seeing, at least on the continent, from a debt perspective and what can be financed.
Great, thanks. Those are solid perspectives that I didn't, I can only come from an expert in the field who is seeing what's happening and the likes. But ESG has become such a key trend and a key focus for many businesses and DFIs, even in the private equity and venture capital space as well. With the like of LPs and especially DFIs, as I mentioned, enforcing it more and more and trying to make sure that everybody is environmentally, social, and have their governance checks in place, so that we can see a more inclusive growth in terms of the impact that is being made to society. So that's a very good one. And it's also interesting to see that tech is also a key focus for folks like you. And you can see how tech is affecting your industry as well, as to financing different types of businesses in that space. Cool. So let me move on to my fourth question. So I just want to let the audience know that you guys can put your questions on the chat room so that I can ask that as we go on. Cool. Nice. So yeah, just based off what you spoke about now, I just want to ask about, I think you already, mentioned what you see the future to be like, but would you like to, I want you to share more insights on where you see the future going. Amazon is coming to Africa now, or they're already in Africa, so those are the key trends that we're seeing. What other key trends are you seeing coming to Africa and maybe the Middle East as well? What are the key pivots, and maybe also shared, maybe where you answer, I can also ask what you see are the challenges for Africa in terms of these key, or your dream for the future is.
I think I'll start with the latter part of the question. So the challenge with Africa generally is you have a bad macroeconomic landscape, right? And the problem with that is that it affects everybody, right? No matter how fantastic your organization is, you cannot, I don't know how to phrase it, you cannot break the barrier of the barrier created by the environment in which you operate, right? So you might take and this is particularly important when you're looking at trying to raise foreign currency debt, which we know is largely cheaper than local currency debt, right? Until the depreciation happens and then you're hammered. Because if the federal government has a certain credit rating, right? Whether you're Dangote or not, you cannot raise, it will be difficult for you to raise foreign currency debt cheaper than what the sovereign is raising their Euro bonds at, right? Effectively because a country ceiling cap applies. You would only be able to break that if if you have a diversified revenue base, and I'm talking about geographical diversified revenue base, where you can say, okay, although I'm headquartered, incorporated in Nigeria, I have some revenue from Europe and all that. And so I think in general, one is that African leaders need to fix the macroeconomic situation on the continent. Granted, I understand that this time is difficult for everybody. It's not just Africa. It's, you're seeing high levels of inflation in Europe. You're saying it's a global issue. But our problems predate this issue, right? It's probably just going to make, the fact it's global now, it's just going to make our situation worse. And we realize that a lot of times when we have the opportunity to do those things, the hard reforms needed, we don't do it. And now it's difficult for you to do those reforms. That's wait for a better time. So, so yes, the biggest challenge definitely for Africa is macroeconomic, and linked to that is a small middle class. Even when you talk about big populations, and that's part of why it's difficult to fund infrastructure, because let's take Nigeria for example, right? You might get very good internet coverage in Nigeria because the private sector guys know there's population density there, right? Nobody is going to build a fiber cable or, the cables for data centers or high-speed internet to a sparsely populated area in the north or in other places in the south, right?
Yeah.
Because they simply you don't have the population, you don't have the spending power. So I think governments, it's not about trying to make the rich richer. We need to find a way to expand the middle class, and it will create opportunities for everybody.
Yeah. Interesting. That was a very good, insightful perspective. So I just want to ask, so where do you see, given, the macro challenges that we're facing in Africa as a whole, and even globally, what key things do you see happening in the future in finance in general? Especially there's a lot to talk about, but I just want to maybe narrow it down to Africa and how you see all these challenges that we're currently facing. How do you see that playing out over time?
Maybe I wish I had a crystal ball, and I think anybody that says they know what's going to happen is deceiving themselves or deceiving other people, right? Yeah, the issue is a lot of the problems in Africa are easy problems to solve. It's just an issue of, because a lot of times we act like, oh, we're the first to have these issues. Like, there's no issue in Africa that somebody somewhere hasn't faced before, right? Yeah. That is unique, right? It's simply a lack of political will to do those things. If we're now down to, for example, Nigeria, we've been screaming potential for 30, 40, 50 years. And someone would have sat down somewhere and said, oh, in 10 years, things will be better. But honestly, until you have, I can only speak on what I wish happens, but in terms of what would actually happen, I really don't know until there's the political will to make those changes.
Okay, cool, interesting. Let me quickly switch back to your career before we let you go. I wanted to ask, now that you're here in this position, what key advices would you have given yourself that you think would have really helped you to come out where you are, or even better off?
Wow. Honestly, I don't know if there's much I would do differently, because I was lucky, right? Yes, there's the hard work and there's also luck. Time and chance happen so. Yeah. I think the most important thing that helped me is that I knew what I wanted even pre-graduating. I knew I wanted to be in finance. Where in finance, that hobbled, to and fro a bit. But once you know what to do, because then you can plan, right? Imagine, you say you wanted to be, you want to be an investment banker or whatever it is, and then you've been taking certifications in a totally unrelated field. So I think it's never too early, one, to know what you want to do. And for those in university, don't waste your summers just partying it up, because it will come and show later by the time when you're trying to get into the job market. Of course, if you have a very connected parents, you might be bailed out. But for most people, those summers are the things that show you have the grit to do what it takes when you get in a job, and it's just good exposure and good networking opportunities.
Yeah, great, thanks. I think that makes a lot of sense, and maybe it's something I would like to hop on. I think that when folks finish from universities or tertiary education and they're trying to think of what to go next into, I think those are the critical points where you have to do a lot of research, you have to talk to people. And this is why, what Oluwole is saying is very important in terms of don't waste your summers. You can work, at the top 4 companies for a summer internship. That just exposes you to the kind of work they are doing. And then you can get a feel of it and see if this is something you really like. And then you can see how, the work hours are, and you see if it's something that, suits you, something that you can adapt to later on in life or the likes. So those are the things that give you that early exposure into the finance space, and then you can get out there and start doing more things. So I don't know. Yeah, sorry.
All I'll also add is that, there's a taboo about talking about money. And honestly, personally, I feel there's nothing wrong in going for a job for the money, right? But just be ready to put in the work, right? Because whatever motivates you. It's not always passion. And sometimes, like, passion is not going to pay your bills, right? You might be lucky enough that your passion makes you the top 1% of people, and then you get paid. But, sometimes some other people are not that lucky. So as long as you're going to put in the work, even if you're going there for the money, do it and grind.
Cool. I like that one. Passion will pay your bills. I feel like that's a very good caption. Yeah, somebody just captioned it on the comment section as well. But yeah, it's definitely very true and very focus-minded. I think we're almost at time. So maybe I would allow you, I don't know, that sounds like a perfect parting words, but I don't think you have any of that feedback or any final words that you'd like to share.
I think I've said anything. I can wait for a few minutes in case there are any questions that come up. But if not, I think we can probably wrap up.
Okay, cool. I mean, Wole is on LinkedIn. You guys can grab him there and, ask him questions and try and connect. I'm sure he'll respond to it when he has the time. Right?
I have time, don't worry.
Sure. Okay, I think we have one question that just came through now. Speaking of political will of the government, I knew this is a question that will come up. Something around government. What financial policies can government implement to extend the small and medium class in Nigeria with respect to economics? So I think essentially they're asking what would be maybe the easy or low-hanging fruits that government can tackle to improve the lives of the middle and small lower class in Nigeria.
I think something that might seem unconnected, but I think is very important, is the flow of capital into the country. I'm not talking about portfolio capital. I'm talking about FDI long-term capital.
Yeah.
And now a lot of times that you might hear about the one-off big projects that are getting financed, but a lot of times that is inhibited by currency convertibility. Nobody's going to put in money into a country they don't know they can take their money out, right? And I think there has been an obsession with this by the central bank in being the sole supplier of, dollars in the country, right? And I think that's also linked to Nigeria's obsession about a strong exchange rate, in quote, whatever that means, right? You can look at South Korea, their exchange rate is, in quote, worse than us, but we're not a better economy we don't have a better economy than theirs, right? Yeah. Letting capital come in freely at the price the market determines, I think would create both those small and medium enterprises that will need to be funded, and greatly expand the middle class. And once you do that, it's just like a snowball rolling down the hill. People have bigger disposable income and can spend on other things, right? I read somewhere that a lot of Nigerians spend upward of 40% of their income on food, right? So bringing down the percentage of people spending, the percentage people spend of their income they spend on food helps people's lives tremendously, because then they have the spare capacity to spend on wants and not just the things they need to survive, right? You look at, and that can be done, infrastructure is one of those things, right? Because there's no reason why you have sometimes the price of tomatoes in one part of the country is 3 times or 3.5 times higher than in some other part of the country. Or potatoes. You see it so many times when MBS release their studies. People complain about imported inflation, but that has nothing to do with imported inflation. This is literally goods produced in our country, but because you cannot transport it without them getting spoiled, you don't have good transport infrastructure or cold storage, the man that needs to sell his products from the north to the south, and half of it is going to get spoiled in transit, that has already doubled your bill, right? So these are the things that are needed. Even if people can just, if government can enact the policies, infrastructure in terms of transport, proper storage, so that the perishable goods that right now just simply rot away can be stored, prices would come down. At least the price range in the country will come down, and that gives people more disposable income to spend on other things. And when you have that money to spend on other things, there'll be incentive for others to set up businesses to satisfy those your wants.
Yeah, definitely. Those are very solid points. I mean, the FX issue with the government just trying to defend currency so that, I don't know if it's a feel-good factor, so that everybody feels good about the current exchange rates. It's not correct.
What amazes me about that is that you say you have a low exchange rate. What's the point of a low exchange rate if everybody cannot get to that price? Yeah. Is that really the rate? If you cannot walk in to a bank or somewhere to get that 420, is the exchange rate really 420? Right. So
and it
shouldn't be exactly.
You're seeing the effects. I mean, airlines are already canceling some of the routes. They're arguing that they can't access FX to take out their cash. And this
thing affects legitimate business, because a lot of times people in government make it seem like, oh, it's only those who are doing illegal things that need these dollars. But there are a lot of legitimate businesses, and you saw the examples with airlines, right, that have cash trapped. What's the point of flying into a country and, in quotes, making money that you can never realize?
Yeah. That's a big one. I mean, and then it seems like the government, we're borrowing a lot of cash, and that cash is not, being reflected in terms of the infrastructure that we're seeing, so that, goods can move from one part of the country to another part, and, at a cheaper rate. And then there's the insecurity issue as well, which is now turning into a massive thing in the country. So it seems like, we have a lot of things on our plates, and we're somehow optimistic that the country will be able to tackle some, if not all, of these issues as time progresses. Okay. I mean, we've taken I think that was a good question that we got on the session. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, thanks for your time, Ole. This was very helpful. Just good to hear about your background, and also the key things. The key trends and innovation that is happening in your field, and what you feel about those. So that was very, very helpful.
Thanks for hosting.
Okay. Do have a great time. Take care, man.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Bye.